won't be much longer. Just having a little camera issue. All right, I think we are good to go. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel, all content on all the platforms, including social media, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere else you find the channel. This is for educational purposes only. And now we got that out of the way. Hello, everybody. Happy weekend. Hope all is well with each of you. And looking forward to this one. This one was sent to me, and I apologize for not remembering who sent it. I think it was on Twitter. I will try to leave a shout out after the break and give a thank you, but you know who you are, so thank you again for that. Also, this is the source is the Jeff Mara podcast, and I do recommend his channel. It's got a lot of experiencer cases on. He's doing a great job, and it's a great resource to conduct your own research on. And okay, so what we're gonna do is go over this case. It's basically you have Rebecca, Arce, and what we're seeing is like a shape-shifting Jesus who first comes in the form of a chief, like a indigenous chief. And well, it's a very strange one. It happened to her at the age of 19. And Jesus has intense eyes. There are some quotes that I left in the description tab for you just to kind of give you a little taste of what's to come. Now, she kind of goes through the core of the NDE pretty quickly and mentions some other things that have happened in her life. And then Jeff picks up a little later on and asks some great questions, which gives us a little more detail into the experience. So looking forward to spending some time with you today, and thanks for joining me. And before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody that starting this month, they're probably going to be, it's probably going to be next week. We'll be starting the first Odyssey and Rumble exclusive, meaning that the channel, the video that'll be done over there will not be available here. And I'll be able to kind of speak a little more freer too, if necessary. And there are also memberships now available on Odyssey as well. So let's get into this case, and I'm looking forward to this. Okay, here we go.
My guest is Rebecca Arce, who during her near-death experience encountered her guides, and today we're going to learn about it. Rebecca, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, Rebecca, if you don't mind, let's start on the day that your NDE happened and go from there.
Okay. I know I was 19 at that time. I can't remember exactly day and month. Like I said previously, I did have some health issues as a child with severe constipation. And then that one incident, I guess, was the atomic bomb in my body. And so I entered severe fevers, pretty high, 104, 105. I just remember feeling really, really sick. I remember going to the hospital, and then after that, I don't remember much. All I know is from my parents that I was there 4 days, and on the fifth day, when they told them there was nothing else that they could do, if they wanted to stay there or take me home. And so the choice was to take me home. And when I was home, what was interesting is I came back for a little while. And like I said, I remember seeing family, like almost just coming in, like I would wake up, go back down, wake up, go back down. And I would see family members coming in. They didn't realize they were saying their goodbyes at that moment. I just remember that little bit, and then I was out. And from there, it almost, like I said, it was like a dream state, almost like if I was having a dream, but it was very realistic for a dream because I could see myself moving along. The first thing I saw was a hillside and this beautiful land around me. And I kept looking around, wondering where I was. And slowly, someone would show up and kind of just do this movement of like this way.
Yeah, it's the welcoming committee saying, hey, step this way, avert your attention and intention towards us so that you can fall right into our hands.
And kind of just do this movement of like this way. And I would see these people. They didn't look familiar to me. I didn't know who they were. And I found myself questioning, like, why am I trusting these people? I don't even know who they are, but I'm following them. And sometimes it was the weirdest thing. Like they would lead me to this land path, this almost like if I was taking a hike, and I would see visions. All of a sudden you have a family member, and I'm like, whoa, what was that about? Almost like little TV screens popping up, like.
Okay, so she all of a sudden is seeing, TV screens, which is kind of like what we hear with life review. But, we don't get too much of a glimpse into that, unfortunately. But it's a very common distraction technique that the Matrix uses. It throws up family, loved ones, pets, whoever, that are back on Earth normally, and they are served as a distraction to get them to remember or think about the current incarnation that they're coming from. And boom, usually the situation will change fairly rapidly, or it leads into something and results in the same thing regardless, which is what we see in this case.
Visions, all of a sudden you have a family member, and I'm like, whoa, what was that about? Almost like little TV screens popping up, like showing me certain things of family that was going to occur that I did not understand at that moment. And then at the end of the hillside, there was a cabin. And I thought it was odd to see a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm walking.
Okay, so before she gets into the cabin, I think it's important to point out that she also mentioned like a hill, like a rolling hill or whatever. And we've seen that in quite a few other cases. It's very prevalent where there's like a hill. Sometimes the light is at the top of the hill, or something equivalent to like a doorway. Sometimes they can't get past that. It's just one of those points that tends to pop up here and there. So thought I'd point that out just to make you aware, just in case you haven't seen that yet.
The family that was going to occur that I did not understand at that moment. And then at the end of the hillside, there was a cabin. And I thought it was odd to see a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm walking towards this cabin, a chief walked out. Very huge feathers. It was not even the way we see it on TV, portrayed in history books. No, it was a very unique outfit.
Okay, so here the chief is there, huge feathers. It reminds me of like the super tall Jesuses, right? Like the really intimidating entities that claim to be Jesus or whoever. And they're very intimidating. And then kind of she drives it home with the eyes, you'll see.
The way we see it on TV, portrayed in history books. No, it was a very unique outfit. And he walked out, and I remember he just kept staring at me, and his eyes, the one thing I remember the most was his eyes, very intense look, just looking at me quietly. And I remember asking him, like, who are you? And he just stayed quiet. And the only thing he did was extend his hands out. And when he extended his hands out, I noticed he had holes in his hands. And I looked at his hands and I'm like, that looks very familiar. Where have I seen that? And I grew up Catholic, but the fact that at that moment it didn't dawn on me, it was weird that I couldn't figure it out.
So see, what we have here is we have like a hybrid, almost shape-shifting type of situation where it's a chief, you know, something she's familiar with, but she also grew up Catholic, so she's kind of got that Jesus component. And, you know, the hands, whatever, they got the wounds from the nails or something, you know, from the crucifixion. I mean, it's so freaking weird.
Where have I seen that? And I grew up Catholic, but the fact that at that moment it didn't dawn on me, it was weird that I couldn't figure it out. I was very foggy in the head. And I just remember saying, I feel like I need to trust you. And then that's when he embraced me. And when he embraced me is when I felt myself just completely dissolve into this light. And we were going through this beautiful.
Okay, so completely embraced her. All right, but let's just rewind it just a little bit more. I missed a part.
Didn't dawn on me. It was weird that I couldn't figure it out. I was very foggy in the head. And I just remember saying, I feel like I need to trust you.
I feel like I need to trust you. I feel like I need to trust you. See, this is exactly part of the problem, right? We are constantly just believing and thinking that what we're dealing with is as advertised. You know, and she says, quote, why am I trusting these people? I don't even know who they are. I mean, she's, you know, applying discernment in real time, but the problem is she's been interacting with the illusion the entire time as well. And this is where we get in trouble. And, you know, I'm sorry to pause it here, but it can't be stated enough that your intention, your essence within has to be crystal clear. It has to know that, you know, there is a potential situation that could pop up where you're going to have to realize in the moment that this is not something you're going to interact with at all. And that's why I think working on this now is so important. Like, you know, build up that intention throughout the rest of your life. Demand lucidity, 100% clear, crystal clear lucidity. You're already shielded. You're already protected. You do not believe in the white light. You don't believe in the tunnel. None of these things exist in your world because they're simply not allowed. Your intention needs to be crystal clear. And if you are, if you're doubting yourself and think that, you know, you have to go to the life review and that these things have power over you and that karma and sinning and judgment and all that stuff is necessary, then you're kind of like a sitting duck for the matrix to swoop in and take you. But if you stand firm in your resolve and know that there is nothing whatsoever that can stand in your way between sovereignty and liberation, you'll be just fine. But should you end up in a situation where the illusions and the deception starts to manifest itself or appear to you, you can get out of the situation. You just don't want to end up at the light. That's where I think things get really, really dicey. But, you know, even interacting with any of this stuff, just nuke it, get rid of it, shield yourself, and apply your intention to get out of the situation immediately.
Foggy in the head. And I just remember saying, I feel like I need to trust you. And then that's when he embraced me. And when he embraced, I feel like I need to trust you.
I feel like I need to trust you. So that right there again, intention, right? She is moving forward and consenting to interact with this being, and all of a sudden the situation changes.
And then that's when he embraced me. And when he embraced me is when I felt myself just completely dissolve into this light. And we were going through this beautiful light. And I just remember thinking, wow, it feels so good here. Like, I did not want to leave. I was happy. It was an emotion beyond happiness, beyond just, I can't explain it. It was just beyond anything. And just remembering thinking like, I could just stay here. I just want to stay here. And as we were traveling through this light, boom, I was up in my bed.
So you can see how her decision to interact with the light, which also is, you know, the proxy in all this is the chief Jesus involved, right? And because she decided to interact with it, and because just a few moments prior, we also saw that the family member was shown on the screen, so to say. That was the hook. And then the entity pretending to be a chief Jesus hybrid, shape-shifting creep with weird eyes staring at her and all that stuff. And then boom, the whole situation changes. She gets engulfed and sent into this tailspin through the light. And this is where the problem always seems to present itself, the light. You interacting with these things, like it. And then what happens? She comes out the other end and she's back here. And what did she say? She wanted to stay home. She wanted to be back at home. The home that she's talking about, though, is not our real home. It's not. There's no way that the light is God or source or whatever. It may be a phony wannabe God in this matrix system, but it's not, you know, the end all be all source, the all that is, and, you know, the creator. Okay. If such a thing even exists. Because, you know, again, we can always go to this and ask the question that everyone always asks. Well, who created it? You know, I mean, we don't know what's going on. I mean, we've been lost for so long that the reason why it's so important to have like a rigid and simplified exit is because you're looking out for yourself and protecting yourself. You're not allowing yourself to get lost again or to fall victim to some illusion or deception. And I mean, that's why it's all about like protecting what's good for you, isolating yourself till you kind of reclaim everything that you are comfortable with, and then see what the heck happens after that. Make decisions after that. But like rushing on to the tunnel into the light and just automatically giving yourself away to it seems like the most dangerous thing out there. It seems completely counterproductive. And that's not to strike fear at all. It's just to say that this is where the evidence leads. It leads that, The white light is the source of a lot of problems and is linked in some way to the reincarnation process, right? Because it memory wipes people that go through it, or essence beings that go through it. So there's just too many issues with getting involved with any of this. So protect yourself, stand your ground, and don't let anything creep its way in. You deserve it.
Boom, I was up in my bed. And as when I woke up, I remember thinking, what am I doing here? I don't want to come back here. And all these thoughts were running through my head.
What am I doing here? What am I doing here? I don't want to be here.
All these thoughts were running through my head, not realizing that I was stiff. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my legs. My body was stiff.
She was in the early stages of rigor mortis. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, we've seen people who are purple and blue and, assumed dead, and they come back and they're cold and they're rigid and stuff like that. So it seems like this is the very beginning of it, and they sent her back.
And when I realized it, I was like, oh no, this is not good. How am I going to get help? And I don't know how I did it. I'm shortening it down, but this took, I think, an hour. It was an hour process or more. Figuring out how to wiggle myself to fall off the bed. From the floor, figuring out how to wiggle myself towards my parents' bedroom, which was around the hallway. And then figuring out how to use my head to knock on their door to let them know I needed help.
Okay. I just want to pause for a second and really just make sure that this is, because I've talked about it before, but I think it's really, really important. Divine Hazel says all she could have done was confront him and ask who the F he really was. He would have had to answer her. No, that's not the case. That's something that's floated around a lot, that they have to tell it. It's clear that they deceive. They have no problem deceiving. I think the most important thing is not to engage whatsoever. I think engaging is interacting with an illusion and putting yourself at risk. So, the only reason I addressed the comment is because I think it's really important that we don't take risks. We can't just assume things. There's a lot of different things that are mentioned out there about how they have to tell us the truth. They have to identify themselves. They have to reveal themselves. I don't think that's true. I think just, we can see through them a little bit easier on the other side, but you have to keep in mind that the systems that these people are going to and where we've been are places that are part of a construct, right? They're part of the overall matrix system. There are mechanisms in place. So if it's not one entity, then it could be another. I mean, if they can present themselves of your deceased loved ones and pets and God or the creator itself and Jesus and all these other things, and not even bat an eye, then to me it seems that deception is, front and center, just as a possibility, a big possibility, throughout, let's just call it the multiverse. So again, it's all about limiting your own liability to getting involved with these things. And, I would never, ever, ever trust or take the word of an entity until I had all my faculties in place and knew that I wasn't mixing myself up in someone else's realm or creation. And I really, really think that's important. Look out for yourself. That's the most important thing, Hazel.
My head to knock on their door to let them know I needed help. So that was, like I said, a long journey. It felt like forever. And all I remember is my mom opening up her bedroom door and seeing me on the floor and her scream. She screamed to my dad, "Mario, pick her up." And she said that when she touched my body, it was cold. And my dad picked me up on the bed. And my mom's like, "Rub her, rub her." She knew what to do. And they were both rubbing profusely. And I could see them moving their hands. I could not feel anything. But all I could remember is telling my mom, "Wow, I saw Jesus."
So you notice how she, like, that's the first thing that she mentions. But, you know, she had a Catholic upbringing, but also kind of in the moment of the NDE didn't connect it, I guess, until later on or right when she got back from the progression of what we're hearing. So even though she wasn't quote unquote a believer, it was still something that she was brought up in. So and then of course she has her native roots, right? So it's like the two worlds collided. But you know, if I was talking to her, I'd love to hear, you know, let's hear more about you know, your Indigenous background too, like with the family and all that stuff. Like, how big a factor was that in your life? I mean, I would assume it must be pretty big if we're seeing a crossover between both types of entities, a chief and Jesus.
I saw Jesus. And I was happy because I was able to tell her, like, "Guess what? I saw Jesus." It was so cool. And she's like in the middle of this panic and trying to figure out what to do. It's like, "Okay, just stop talking." She was like baffled with my reaction of like this happiness in me of who I saw. And so then she was like, it's okay, just stay quiet and we're gonna help you." And eventually I was taken back to bed. And that morning, I guess this must have been like 1 or 2 in the morning, because I remember they put me back to bed. I woke up around, I think it was around 8 or 9 in the morning again. And I just remember feeling this intense pain. It felt like someone had gutted me in the stomach. My stomach felt hollow. It felt like I had nothingness inside of me. And it was because I had, they had pumped my stomach. So there was a lot that had been done to me to try to get rid of the severity of the infection. So I felt like I was beaten up.
Yeah, welcome home. Welcome back to Earth. Ah, poor thing.
And so I just remember being in pain that whole day. And all this family was coming over, like looking at me like amazed that I was talking. The fever was gone, but I was in a lot of pain. And I remember my grandma came up to me and she goes, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "To be honest with you, I don't know why I came back. This is horrible. I don't want to be here. I'm ready to die." And then she was like looking at me like, "Don't say that." And I'm like, "No, it's okay, Grandma. I'm ready. I'm okay with that." And I told her what I experienced. I'm like, "I just want to go back." And she was like, No, you're back for a reason. Don't say that." They were like, again, I kept baffling everyone with my comments of like, "I'm ready, guys." I'm ready to go back there. And
see, I mean, this is the problem, right? The Matrix has conditioned us to automatically assume that the light going back there is home. Like that's where we're supposed to go. When, I'm of the strong opinion that it is the addiction to the sensory experience in general that we kind of get all caught up in, and the light and all this other stuff plays a massive role. Of course, attachment, soul groups, and we can go karma, perceived sinning and judgment and all that stuff. It all plays a role, and it just depends where you land geographically and what your belief is. But the indoctrination system leads to the same place every time, and that's this feeling of home when it's the furthest thing from it.
I remember nighttime came again. And I sat in my bed, and like I said, I'm in pain. And I'm like praying, and I said, okay, God, Jesus, whoever came, just take me back. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm good to go. I'm sorry for all that I've done. You know, like, I apologize for any wrongdoings I did as a kid. I did my prayers, everything. And I was ready to go. And it was like I laid down in bed, and then this weird thought came through my mind, like, wait a minute, what if they don't take me? And so then I got up again. I'm like, okay, now I gotta.
Okay, so now she's kind of reverting back to her upbringing in some way, and like, maybe I wasn't worth it. Maybe I'm not supposed to go back there until I do this or that. I mean, there are people who come back from NDEs and they literally think that they got kicked out of God's kingdom. I mean, imagine coming back from an NDE and feeling that for the majority of the rest of your life. I mean, that is some really, really deep trauma to endure, especially if you felt like you got kicked out, or you're right at the pearly gates, so to say, and then boom, they send you back and they memory wipe you. I mean, it's not an easy thing for people to process. And a lot of NDEers go through hell when they come back here, just wrestling with what happened to them and why they're back here.
Came through my mind, like, wait a minute, what if they don't take me? And so then I got up again. I'm like, okay, now I got to do a new prayer. And I said, hey guys, if you don't take me tonight, can you at least take this pain away? Because this is killing me. Like, I'm in a lot of pain. I can't handle this, guys. And went to bed, deep sleep, no dreams, nothing, long sleep. Woke up, I think, after a 12-hour sleep. And I remember getting up, and the first thing I did was notice that I felt different. I was still not 100%, but I felt more different from the day before. But I couldn't believe what I was feeling, so I questioned it. Am I like numb to the pain? It's like, there's no way this pain is gone, because any movement, any breathing, it was pain. And so I sat up, and I was amazed that I was able to sit up, because I couldn't even sit up. The whole time I was like crouched like this just to be able to tolerate the pain. So I remember sitting up and thinking, wow, it doesn't hurt to sit up. Then I decided to get up. So I got up slowly, and I'm standing in my room, and I'm like thinking, like, there's still no pain. Then I did something that I laugh about now. I'm all like, I decided to hop on one leg to see if it was for real. So I start jumping, no pain. And I was like, that's impossible. And I remember I came out of the room, and I walked towards my mom, and my mom's like, whoa, like, are you okay? And I'm like, Mom, yeah, the pain's gone. It's weird. Like, how is that possible, Mom? Like, there's just no way a pain like that could just go away. And she was like, yeah, that's not realistic. I go, I don't feel pain. I'm okay. I don't feel 100% yet, but at least the pain is gone. And so she just was really confused too. Like, everyone was confused of what had happened. She even took me back to the doctors, and the doctors are like, I don't know, like, we don't know what to tell you. Like, we thought you were a goner. Everything looks like it's going back to normal. Just, just make sure to keep resting. And so that was 19 to 25. Those years were tough. My immune system was affected. I did have atrophy, especially my right side got affected. I couldn't hold a pencil. I couldn't hold a cup with my, I'm dominant right hand, so I had to learn how to do a lot of things left-handed. So it was a long recovery of the consequences of the near-death experience. But thankfully, I was able to function, semi-function, but function. So I would go to school part-time, do little things part-time. And I remember just being frustrated, like, why did they let me come back and not be fully functional? All my friends were off to college. All my friends are getting their BAs, which was taking me years just to get an AA only. And so I remember just venting my frustration to a friend of mine, like, this is ridiculous. Like, why did I even come back? What's the purpose of this? And a friend of mine that was attending UC Irvine at the time, a holistic doctor, Dr. Howard Cohn, came to do a talk about alternative care. So she listened and she grabbed a business card and she came over to my house and she goes, I think you need to see this guy. I think he's going to help you on your healing journey. And so I went, because I was already tired from hearing the same story from doctors, like, we don't know, let's try this, let's try that. Nothing was working. And so when I went, he did all this muscle testing and just with his fingers touching, I'm touching the spleen, he would muscle test. Without telling anything to this guy, he's like, oh, you've always suffered from constipation. I'm like, yeah, how did you know that? Oh, this organ and that organ is under stress. And he's just rambling on. And I'm thinking, like, how is this guy, no blood tests, no x-rays, just muscle testing me, figuring out all my life, what I suffered from, what was going on with my body. And he's all like, let me put it to you simply. Think of your body as a refrigerator full of food that never gets cleaned out. What grows in it? And when he gave me that description, I was like, oh my God, has that been in my body this whole time? He goes, yeah. He goes, you're pretty much close to being back on the surgery table again. And I'm like, no, I can't go back to the hospital. I just can't. And so he was a very profound shift to my healing journey. From age 25 to 30, major detoxes, major supplements to pretty much restore my body, gain function on my right side.
Okay, so from 19, now we're into her 30s, she's dealing with the aftermath of her health issues that she had as a child. She's talking about, she's dealing with constipation. If I had to guess, she probably got sepsis. And that's what caused this. I'm guessing, I'm not a doctor. I obviously don't know, but she doesn't actually say that. But just a guess. I mean, sepsis is really serious and can easily admit someone to the hospital if they're not capable of going, And then, she's having to rehab herself into her 30s. It's a pretty rough ride for her all the way. Meanwhile, like, she talks about, like, her friends were going to college, going to school and all this other stuff. And she is wondering to herself, what is my purpose? Why am I still dealing with this? Why did I come back? Perfectly logical questions, but it kind of, you'll see where it goes next.
Restore my body, gain function on my right side. And during this process, when they would do whatever healing session, whether it was their holistic chiropractor, or acupuncture or massage therapy, cranial sacral, Reiki, I was introduced to all of that during that time. Had no idea what that all was. Never knew it existed before then. And I was very curious because when they would touch me, when I would get acupuncture done, it felt like electricity throughout my body. And I would tell them, like, oh my God, I could feel that traveling in my body. And I could feel this and I could feel that. And I'm seeing this and I'm doing, because I would get visions. Like, it almost felt like whatever I went through in my near-death experience, it just, in a more holistic way, and as a healer, it amped me up. And then that's when they were the ones that told me, hey, you know, you could be a healer, right? You have that capacity. What you went through, it almost like gave you this extra sensory that you're not aware of. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? They're like, not any normal person could feel what you've been feeling and describing to us. You are meant to be a healer. And I was like, so I became really curious. Like, I wanted to learn more. And then that's when I started going to Golden West College for massage. And they did it very holistically, where I learned more about Reiki, what it meant, what it was about, an introduction to cranial sacral, yoga, meditation, you name it, I took it. And the more I was learning about this holistic approach, the spiritual approach, I was understanding more and more the messages and why I went through that near-death experience. And then I realized, like, oh, now I know why I came back. Because for the longest time, I always questioned, like, why did I come back? What was the purpose of me experiencing that near-death experience and coming back, having to deal with so many health issues and recovery and all that? And then that's how now I'm known as the muscle whisperer. I'm known as this healing facilitator that people, whenever they feel my hands on them, they're just like blown away. Like, I could really feel your energy. People that are very sensitive, when I touch them, they could feel my hands heating up. They could feel the energy. And they could, even one person, a lot of other healers that they've had my touch and experienced my healing, they're like, whoa, like, you have a lot of guides around you. Did you know that? And I always tell them the story of my near-death experience, how I saw all these people around me and didn't realize who they were until afterwards. Like I said, doing all this schooling and meditation and really embracing my experience, that I realized who they were, what they meant to me. And then realizing that they were all helping me do this new journey in my life and becoming a healer for people, and being able to relay messages to them, any experience they have gone through, for me to be able to explain it to them, for them to have that aha moment like I did throughout friends and family that kind of guided me on this path, and, you know, the holistic doctors too.
So you can see she comes back and, you know, is a little lost for a while, trying to just get herself situated, her health in order. And it's awesome that she did find that and was able to heal herself and help others. But the other issue is that, you know, it's clear that, you know, there are guides involved. She's admitted this, and she is doing the bidding of the Matrix. That's just the only way to put it. And she seems like a very sweet woman. Rebecca, if you ever listen to this, I think you're doing great and doing what's best for you. And the only thing I'd add is that I think you should go with your gut feeling from your NDE, Rebecca, that, you know, I don't even know these people, right? I mean, what were some of the quotes? Let me try to bring those up while we're here. I think they're really important, because you say, why am I trusting these people? I don't even know who they are. When she's saying people, she's talking about during her near-death experience. So she's talking about entities, spirit beings, whatever. And, you know, And then also saying something like, I feel like I need to trust you. I feel like I need to trust you. These are the issues that kind of pigeonholes us into a certain belief system, and then thinking that we have like this grand thing to accomplish while we're here, and then it's all part of growth and spiritual growth and development and all that. But if you're born here and you're in the system, you come here under the veil of forgetfulness, not knowing where you came from, why you were here, where you were going. A select few do have experiences like you did. Even less have those experiences at a young age, and mostly a high percentage know that they have some mission, but they don't even really know what it is, or some feel like they know what it is. But there, even you can have all these experiences and think that you know what your mission is and why you're supposed to be here, and that, you know, what you're supposed to learn and grow from. But the bottom line is that most people don't. Most people have no clue. There's another segment of the population that's kind of guessing based on experiences. Then there's a very, very small select few that think they know without a doubt. And that almost always funnels into experiencer cases. So the bottom line is most people have no clue. And if you come here under the veil of forgetfulness, lifetime after lifetime, what can you learn? How can you grow? How can you improve yourself and your essence within if you don't have a memory of it? This is where the Matrix Reincarnation Soul Trap exposes itself front and center to all of us. If we had memories, if we had the choice to, come here as a one-off and just experience it, and maybe we get mind wiped for one go around just to see what it's like, but it would be guaranteed that you get it all back. I mean, something like that. But with that being said, clearly there's the only lesson to really learn here is that you never go to visit or interact in another realm if it requires taking even 0.001% of your essence and memories in exchange for an experience. This was the lesson that we learned, is that never, ever, ever give your core self away, not even a smidgen, because this is what we end up in, or this is what the possibilities are.
So it's been quite an experience. Every person, whoever I've met that has also had a near-death experience, it's almost like it's a little club, like, oh, did you experience that? Oh, you got to see that. And it's fun to share this story because it makes you realize that there's much more beyond what we're experiencing here on Earth. And what we're experiencing here on Earth are just experiences and lessons that I've grown to acknowledge and embrace, that anything good or bad that happens in our life, I don't believe there's anything good and bad. Before I would be like, oh my God, I went through this bad experience. Oh my God, I had this really great experience. Now I just say, every experience I go through is well worth it because it's helping me grow.
Okay. All right. So we're going to rewind that just a little bit, and let's just be honest with ourselves. I know a lot of the new age type of thinking likes to pigeonhole us again into thinking that there is no good, there is no bad. And, once we are, kind of walk the center path and we're leaving here, sure. Okay. If we're not around it anymore, great. But the point is it is very clear that good and evil exists not just within the Earth realm system, but the overall adjacent realms linked to this whole matrix system, right? They exist. If they didn't exist, we wouldn't hear about them through all different types of experiencer cases. There wouldn't be this false, lame, hierarchical system that is trying to keep us contained within it, okay? It's clear that both sides of the spectrum exist. Now, do they exist fully outside of here? I don't know. But I'd have to say yes. I mean, I'd have to say that mentality is out there. And if someone allows themselves to gravitate towards being an asshole, being negative, hurting others, even if you can't be hurt because you're a true essence being that's eternal, doesn't matter. The point is they exist and they can work their way with you if you're not aware of your own powers and how to get rid of that situation and leave it. Remember, we can leave these situations instantaneously when we're outside of the body. And that is what you should strive for moving forward, right? Assert yourself. Nothing's going to stand in your way. Nothing.
Experiences and lessons that I've grown to acknowledge and embrace, that anything good or bad that happens in our life, I don't believe there's anything good and bad. Before I would be like, oh my God, I went through this bad experience. Oh my God, I had this really great experience. Now I just say, every experience I go through is well worth it because it's helping me grow and grow and grow. I don't mind how it comes, in what way or shape it comes in. I embrace it as an experience of growth.
And see, that's where the problem comes into, right? Like this assumption that we're here to grow, like that this is some spiritually driven place, a driven experience that, you know, hey, if we experience bad, I mean, can we, let's talk turkey. All right. Can we all sit here and say that God's plan and that, you know, you're here to grow and learn, to the homeless child who has no food or water in North Korea or India or China or wherever, all right? Or they're the ones that are put into slavery. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I mean, there's so many examples. And I think the problem with kind of looking at all of this from the Western thought process is that, you know, you're fairly shielded from the real horrors that can exist out there. Does that mean you're shielded from them completely? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm just speaking in general terms. I'm not talking about any single person individually. I'm just saying it's easier to fall into that, you know, that there's a reason for all this. It's all part of my growth and stuff like that, and not take into account the big picture about all of the atrocities that go on here and how pervasive it is and how it's been going on for as far back as we have records for. You know, even though history is skewed, it's clear through those records that, you know, atrocities are always there. Always. It's the one thing you can count on. Always there. So, you know, and stomping on our sovereignty, forcing us into religions or into armies or into the workforce, or, you know, slave wage jobs or slavery in general. I mean, we can go on and on. These things have existed for as far back as we have records for. There's no utopian Earth record out there with, and not to mention, it's not like you can rely on much of anything when it comes to history, but we do see those other things, and those are the atrocities, and they're very, very prevalent. So where is the growth in that? Where is the growth if you're coming here memory wiped? It just doesn't exist.
Because it's helping me grow and grow and grow. I don't mind how it comes, in what way or shape it comes in. I embrace it as an experience of growth. So that's a little bit of how everything has happened so far.
Rebecca, thank you for sharing your experience with us. During your NDE, you kept seeing visions of things. Were you seeing your past life or visions of the future?
It was, some were past and some were future. The future ones were very weird because when they started happening, it was like, I would question it because, like I said, I was not aware at that time what had happened and what was the purpose. Yeah, and so when I would experience the ones that did come in the future, it was almost like, it turned, to me, I took them as confirmations that I was on the right path. Like they showed me certain things to be aware, like, okay, you're on the right path.
Can you?
Okay. So when she says that, basically what's that doing? It's like, okay, she got bits and pieces of her life script, during her NDE and others, life scripts that kind of branch off in her life. And so her interpretation is that, if they come to fruition, that she's on the right path. But all that kind of says to me, and again, Rebecca, if you're listening to this, nothing personal, this is just my opinion on everything that's going on here, that, it's easy to fall into the life scripts, and we can kind of rewind just a little bit and talk about how pre-birth memories and past life regressions, life between lives, play a major, major role in all this, and how those things point to a life script, and either we're compliant and fall into life script A, B, C, D, however many there are, or at some point we awaken and say, no, I'm not going to be a puppet anymore, and I'm going to go my own way and do my own thing and let the cards fall where they lie, where they may.
Certain things to be aware, like, okay, you're on the right path.
Can you give us an example?
There was one vision that I saw that a major accident was going to happen to a cousin of mine. And when that happened, I was able to help him get through that experience, and just make him realize that this was not something horrible that had happened to him. It was supposed to happen, and how to move on from that and keep going.
What was your reaction during the actual future event that was happening?
It was one of those moments, it felt very surreal. Like, almost, like, again, I would question, like, did I dream this, or did this really happen? I would question it, of course, because it was very surreal, like, very, very weird. And like the extrasensory, having that extrasensory, there was a lot of experiences, like if cousins were going through a delivery, like labor pains, I would feel the labor pains and wonder, why am I in so much pain all of a sudden? I had one very unique experience where an uncle of mine decided to live on the street. He was an alcoholic, and he was beaten up that night. And I remember that night just feeling someone beating me up. And I remember waking up in the morning and telling my Mom, something happened last night. I felt like someone was beating me up all night. And my mom was looking at me weird. And then that's when we got the call that my uncle had been beaten up. Like little weird incidents like that would happen where I would experience something, feel something, and then I would go to my mom and tell her, like, hey, this is happening. I was like, is everything okay? And she would look at me weird, and then all of a sudden we would get the call. Someone had just had a baby. Someone was beaten up. This happened. And it was this one after the other, where I was like, how is this possible? Like, why am I experiencing this? So those were the major ones where I was kind of like, whoa,
Why do you think Jesus appeared to you as a Native American?
I've always wondered that. I've always wondered why he did that. And to this day, I don't know. And all I could tell my friends is like, you know what? When that time comes again, I'm going to ask him. And they all laughed with my response. Like, I'm going to have to ask him when I see him again. Like, why did you dress up? Like, why didn't you just come to me the way you usually do? And I only use that phrase because of movies that I've seen of true life stories of children.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, she was kind of she was 19 when her experience happened. So she had a little more life experience than the typical childhood NDE. That doesn't mean it's not taking away from anything that she experienced. It's just that it seems like she, whatever I wish we heard a little bit more about her native background, right? And her family's native background, and get a little more details on that. I also believe that when she was in the beginning of her NDE, that she was quite possibly linked in with some of her past lives, and we really don't get many details on what that is. We hear more about the things that have played out in this lifetime. But I really, really would have liked to have heard more details about what she feels she experienced in relation to her past life, and all those, the beings that she saw that she didn't recognize. And then, of course, there were some that she did, but that was on the screen and stuff. So I'd love to hear the difference in between there, right? And kind of get to the bottom of what is what. I think if she didn't have memories of certain entities that she was dealing with during the NDE, talking about a segment of it, then it begs the question, who were they? How do they relate to her? And if I had to guess, it would have something to do with her soul group, likely and her past incarnations. But I'm just guessing, because we really don't get many details with that. So move on a little bit longer, and then we're going to take a break, and we have still a little bit more to go through. So
that had their near-death experience and what they saw. And I'm like, why didn't he come to me dressed that way? Like with the, just nice casual white robe and just his unique own self way. So...
You mentioned that you grew up Catholic. Are you still Catholic today?
No.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pick up with that question when we return. We're at about an hour and 15 minutes, and I do need to fill my water. Got a little bit of a sore throat. I apologize. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. I don't think I'll be the full 5 minutes, so hang in there just for a few moments, and look forward to seeing you all again in a few minutes. Thanks so much. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, along with all forms of social media, video sharing websites, such as Twitter, Odyssey, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, and DLive, and anything else I may be missing. We are going to move along here in Rebecca's case of the weird-eyed, shape-shifting Chief Jesus. And so let's continue. And we're going to leave off at Jeff's most recent question. So,
unique own self way. So,
You mentioned that you grew up Catholic. Are you still Catholic today?
no, there was growing up Catholic. I always questioned a lot of things because there was, as a child, I did have experiences where I would see things, I would hear things, didn't know what was happening, and I would, when during confession, I would tell priests, like, I could hear people talking to me. I did have an experience at age 10 where my great grandmother visited me. That was the only like real time I saw a vision of a spirit. And it was, I knew it was her because of pictures, but she died when I was 5. And so I remember when I saw her, I'm like, wait, aren't you dead? And she said, she responded, yes, but that she came to visit me to give me messages. So I was already a sensitive child growing up. I just didn't understand it because I grew up Catholic, like, that's stuff of the, you don't talk about that stuff, period. And so I remember confessing to, my priest and telling him like, hey, people keep waking me up, bothering me. And then they would give me a little scapula and tell me to pray that it would go away. And it never did. And I remember one day as I was getting older, just telling the priest, like, I don't believe you guys anymore. Like, you guys keep telling me that this is not for real, but yet it's happening to me. So it was when I had that near-death experience, that's when I realized what I was seeing growing. And then after what I experienced in the holistic doctors, and then they would tell me, no, you're a sensitive, you're an empath. You have these abilities. And with your near-death experience, they just got amplified. And they kept telling me, no, you've been meant for this. This is your path. So like I said, it didn't dawn on me. So yeah, after that, I just lost faith in that religion. I didn't lose faith. I did not respect the structure or the way they implement certain things.
okay, and I love how she says that. But I also feel like she plays it safe here with this answer. And, I get it. She's got to do what she got to do for her own life, and she's got her own thing going. So, she's got to kind of protect herself. But, and, each religion does have value. May not be tremendous value, but there's value there. And there's, it's always like that classic phrase, take what works and leave the rest. But, the rest in religion's case is a lot. There's a lot of the rest. And the problem is that these indoctrination systems are set up from cradle to grave, and the Matrix, all it wants you to do is just fall into them and not question it. But, if you look at religions individually, there are little nuggets of truth here and there, but they're far and few between. And some have a little bit more than others. But all in all, it's deception highway. Hey, Tommy, good to see you, brother.
Lost faith in that religion. I didn't lose faith. I did not respect the structure or the way they implement certain things. I love religion. I love what the Bible brings. There's a lot of passages. When I was going to college part-time, I did take a course on ancient literature where we were supposed to read passages from the Bible and the Quran and different ancient literature. And it was a really aha moment for me then, where it wasn't meant to be in such a structured format. It was just meant as messages written down for all of us to be able to read them when we need them and use them as references for whatever we're going through to kind of lead us back on our purpose, our path. So that's when I was able to respect more the Bible and the Quran and any, like I said, I love all religions. I love what they contribute to us, what they bring to us, because I guess after that experience, it just made more sense to me.
I see. I don't necessarily agree with the term love all religions. Some are pretty vile and disgusting. Actually, if you really want to get down to it, they're all they all funnel into that. And even though some have more value than others, overall, they do humanity no good. Because what it does is religion is designed to steal your core essence. It's designed to break you down and just accept the convenient answer that the Matrix provides you. And it all depends on where you end up landing, where your family fits in, geographical location, and some are absolutely appalling and vile, all right, with what they do to people. Absolutely sickening. I'm not even going to name any of them. We can all kind of guess what they are, because certain things can't be said. But anyways, I think using the term love all is, just it's I'm sorry, but it's just like a cop out to excuse some of the atrocities that are surrounded by a number of mainstream religions.
Are there any other abilities that you gained from your NDE that you haven't mentioned?
The main ones is being able to experience and see things as they're going to happen. Even till this day, new clients will schedule sessions. So I do body work, and they'll schedule their session, and sure enough, the day before I go to see them, I'll tell my husband, I got a lot of pain in my back, or I'm experiencing pain in my wrist. Oh, there's this weird pain in the hip. And I'll document everything I'm experiencing. And sure enough, 100% of the time, and I could say 100% because it's 100%. Once we start working on the client, it's exactly where they're feeling their pain. So I'm experiencing it before I see them. And that's new.
When you were on the other side, you saw Jesus, you saw some other beings, I think that were your guides, but you didn't really know them. Did you see anybody else there that you did know, like family members that had passed over or transitioned over?
No, there was no family there, which is another thing that I also question, was that, did they know it? I think my question is to them is did they know it wasn't my time already? And that's why I didn't see family.
This is an interesting question she poses. Hear what she has to say.
Was that, did they know it? I think my question is to them is did they know it wasn't my time already? And that's why I didn't see family. Because I did not see any family. It was just mainly all these people that I have never seen in my life.
Okay. Wow.
That were just guiding me. And so it was,
all right, let's just rewind what she says, because I think there's a few different things we can point out.
I think my question is to them is did they know it wasn't my time already? And that's why I didn't see family.
Well, Yes, they know it's not your time because your death is scripted through your life script. So they know, the system knows, it's automated and will process every individual accordingly based on whatever their script is. But if you remember early on in the experience, she did mention how she saw a family member, but she was referring to, at least from what I remember, she was referring to someone back on Earth, and that was kind of like the dangling carrot. But we really, again, like we miss a lot of details. It's a very, very condensed experience. But then she kind of says here, that's maybe this is why she didn't see family members. And so, just pointing this out for discernment purposes.
Because I did not see any family. It was just mainly all these people that I have never seen in my life that were just guiding me.
Okay, so people that were just guiding her. So like we talked about earlier, that is more in line with the soul group. These are entities that we're familiar with, but because we're like in a different state, in a different lifetime, we still have that vague connection. And I think some people that go, some essence beings that kind of go through this, they kind of sometimes have a gut feeling that they knew them, but they couldn't quite put their, finger on exactly where they knew them from. But she's kind of saying, I don't know who they are. And that could be the same case. Again, remember, we're talking about a 19-year-old, and you throw in the memory wipe too. Who knows? All right. It really seemed like the Matrix was kind of jumbling up her beliefs, current incarnation's belief system, along with something in her past life. But again, we do not get firm answers about exactly what was a past life experience, what it entailed and what it was all about, versus something that played out in her future in this incarnation. So we really miss a lot. And Jeff has done a great job getting as much information from Rebecca as possible. So remember, check out the Jeff Marr podcast.
And so I wonder if they knew. I mean, they must have known. I mean,
they knew.
But I think that's one question I'll have for sure when it's time. I know a lot of people always crack up when I always say, I'm ready when it's time. When that time comes again, I'll be ready and celebrating it, because I know what I'm going to. So I have no fear.
That's great. When other people talk to you about the fear of dying, how do you advise them, or what kind of advice do you give them?
I always tell them that they should not fear death. I think the fear is more of not letting go of what they have here, and I always explain to them that they will be able to still see their loved ones, experience their loved ones in a different format, in a different way. Because I've been able to experience that. All my loved ones that have passed on after my near-death experience, I've been able to see them. For example, my grandmother, she passed away when I was 30, I want to say 32. And that was after my near-death experience. And I remember we knew she was going to die. She had an aneurysm. They had told us it was not good. It was coming. Her death was coming. And I was celebrating it. A lot of family got really angry with me because I was not behaving in another format of loss and mourning. And I was like, because she kept telling us, I'm ready. And I'm like, okay, good. You're going to love it. And I was just like excited for her. And I remember she was very Catholic, very, very Catholic. And I called her on her birthday. She died after her birthday. And in December, her birthday was September. And I remember she called and she goes, I asked her, what do you want for your birthday, Grandma? She goes, I just want to be able to confess and have my last rites. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So basically, Granny's serving herself up on a platter to the Matrix. I need to confess. I need to, repent and this and that. And, it just breaks my heart to hear that. Like that, Grandma or anyone else thinks that they owe this system an explanation for anything. All right. When this is the dumpster fire that has been presented to us, this system is part of the creation of this ridiculous human body, let alone the animal kingdom and the dog eat dog world that's out there. Let's just get real and talk turkey, because minimizing how deep all this goes just doesn't cut the cake anymore. It just doesn't. It couldn't be more obvious what we're dealing with. It's just a matter of weaving yourself in and out of the bullshit to kind of, get to the point where, you flush it, and you have a clearer vision about what's going on deep within. It's like something that you connect with on a huge level and can kind of see how the whole world is a clown show, and that all it wants is your attention. It wants you to take this world seriously. Don't take it seriously, because that's what it craves. It wants authenticity in your mind when it's the furthest thing from authentic. It is a literal clown show.
So that day I hanged up, called all these churches, got denied by like a good 20 churches, until finally I got that one church that was very open-minded, and they're like, sure. They did she got to confess herself, got her last rites, and she called back all excited, like, oh, thank you. I got an earful from the whole family. Like,
okay, so let's just talk about how screwed up that is, right? Rebecca has to call 20 churches. 20. The family member is on their deathbed, and she just wants last rites and wants to get her sins forgiven and all that stuff. And she has to go through calling 20 different places. That's messed up.
excited, like, oh, thank you. I got an earful from the whole family, like, what? Who the hell do you think you are? I'm like, listen, she's ready to go. Stop fighting it. It's okay. And I think it was more dealing with other people's fear than the person dying. Because usually when you know you're on your way out, it's like, I'm ready. And so I remember the day she died, I was working. I refused to visit the body at the hospital, because the minute she had that other aneurysm that took her, I knew she was gone already. It was just, they were just keeping the body there as long as they could to continue mourning. So I refused to go to the hospital. I went back to work.
Or were they trying to keep the body going for organ donation purposes? And that's a whole nother conversation. And I know I'll piss off a little percentage of you out there, but by no means donate organs. That's a whole nother video in and of itself. I'm not even going to go down that road, but there's a lot of crazy stuff with organ donations. And the last thing you want is your body or organs or anything any sort of cellular memory hanging around when you're leaving this place. You don't want to keep any sort of attachment here, even if it's like subconscious, like it's just not in your best interest. So I am one who is heavily on the side of cremation and making sure that that is set up in some way, or whatever you got to do to make sure that that's your final wish. That so when your time does come, It's nothing you even have to worry about. It's all set and it's done, and as quickly as possible.
I could to continue mourning. So I refused to go to the hospital. I went back to work, continued my daily life, because that's what she told us to do. She said, if anything happens, you need to continue your life. And I said, oh yeah, that's a given. The day she died, I was working in, at that time I was working at the chiropractic office. The holistic doctor that helped me, I was working for them in the back office, and I had the beautiful view of the Newport Beach. It was by the bay where all the boats are parked. And I remember it was during our break, and I would do a lot of filing, and I'm sitting there. And I remember just looking up and then just seeing her in a crystal-like figure flying by and just waving with this big smile on her face. And I was like, yes. And my office manager, she's like, are you okay? Because I was like, yes, she's finally going to rest in peace. And then she's all like, looking at me very weird, like, what is going on? Oh, my grandma just died finally. Poor thing. She suffered a lot. And she's like, okay, you're freaking me out. And I'm like, no, I just saw her. She looked beautiful. I'm so happy for her. And then the phone rings. And my office manager's like, if that's your family letting you know that she just passed, I'm going to freak out. I'm going to need to go take a walk. Sure enough, she picks up the phone. It's my uncle to let me know that she had just passed. And my office manager's all like, that's it. I got to go. I'll be back in an hour. But those are the experiences that I appreciate. And with all the loved ones that have passed, I think I love those experiences more because they do come back and tell me like, hey, I'm good. Wow, everything you told me was so true. You know, an uncle, the most recent one was an uncle of mine. When he passed, you know, he passed away in his home. And I went to take my mom just to say her goodbyes. And I remember just looking at the distance at his body and just thinking like, that's just the body. Whatever we come in is not how we leave. It's the spirit. And so I remember I came home after that and I sat in my room and I'm like, well, it was great when you were here. You were the funniest uncle, because he was a comedian, a drunk. He was always drunk, very comedic, very playful. And I remember I was sitting there and he always had this habit. He had a very heavy hand and he would always pat me on my head, like very heavy. And I'm talking to him and I'm like, yeah, it was so great. I have so many great memories. I can't wait to see you again when that time comes for me. And I remember he patted me. I remember feeling the pat and I was like, oh, you came, thank you, you know. But those are the experiences I gained after the near-death experience, where I'm able to actually see them transition, see them, experience them after that, their joy, and just knowing that that's where I'll be going to one day.
What do you think inspires you about your NDE?
What inspires me? It gave me a purpose. It truly gave me a purpose to discover more within me, discover what we're capable of, because we really don't think we're capable of much until you have those moments. And
Listen what she says.
Discover more within me, discover what we're capable of, because we really don't think we're capable of much.
Okay, so what she's saying, she's so accurate, right? I mean, that's so true, Rebecca. But that is what we've been indoctrinated into from cradle to grave. And then we can go to early childhood development. We can go to intergenerational indoctrination and trauma and how that carries over throughout our lineage and passes over and is dropped onto us like a dumpster fire. And then unless you break those connections and are able to even realize that they exist, they're only going to keep going. And so it's a perfect storm because the bulk, I mean, remember, she's admitting it here that most people are not aware of what they're capable of and all this other stuff. And then there's like another segment of the population with the experiencer population that explore and have incredible things happen to them, whether for the negative or the good. But when you kind of boil it all down, it's still a small percentage. It's not like the bulk of the population of the whole entire realm. So what about all the other people that are getting screwed out of kind of finding themselves and seeing through the BS? What about all them? Where is the lesson there? And then, of course, we can bring up the whole thing with atrocities and go off on a rant about that. I'll spare that, but it's just, the problem is if you're not aware, if you're not awakened to how this place trains your mind to believe in certain things, and how your past lives play a role, how indoctrination plays a role, how your family's indoctrination plays a role, and your family's family. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. The point is it's a perfect storm. They've thought of just about every goddamn thing to suck us in and keep us believing in the illusion that there is some sort of power that we need to yield and drop down to and bow and believe in. But to me, I've seen that if this so-called thing, God, the creator, source, whatever you want to frame it as, if it is what it claims to be, then it's an absentee God. It's an absentee source, absentee creator, whatever. It clearly has no interest in fixing what the hell is going on here. This place runs like a fine old machine. And until we as individuals step up and reclaim ourselves, it's going to continue that way. There is no fixing this place. There is no saving this place. The only thing you can do is save yourself. And if you're lucky, maybe get in the ears of a few people that'll listen along the way, whether they're your family or friends, internet posts, something like that. And sharing this information, getting it out there so that, there's a few out there. Like, for instance, I started kind of shifting everything on this channel a few years back to discuss this topic because I knew how important it was, but I kept finding myself falling into all sorts of BS, the same old Matrix BS. I'm like, wait, why am I talking about all this other crap? I mean, yeah, it was interesting. It was fun. It was information that people should be aware of, but really when you boil it all down, it was still just Matrix distractions. I mean, the best thing you can do is help another see through the BS. And unfortunately, we have family, we have friends, we have even online friends who, sometimes it's just not, they're not ready for it. It's just not their time in this incarnation and for them to kind of process and go through this. But that's on them. That's not on you. And the best thing you kind of come to is reluctant acceptance about what is. And as long as you're working on yourself, that's what matters most. And again, if you can kind of pick up one or two along the way, great. If you can't, don't stress about it. Everyone will eventually figure this thing out. It's only a matter of quote unquote time until other beings figure this out. And it just may not be this lifetime. It may not be 10, 20, 30, 100, or 1,000 lifetimes from now. But it'll happen at some point. And if you can't kind of pierce through that veil that is over them, then you're just spinning your wheels and wasting your time and hurting yourself. Because obviously we want to help others, but that only goes so far. I mean, just think about really, really basic baby truths. Real bottom of the barrel stuff that, is just blatantly obvious. And I'm not even going to mention them, but, there's a certain event, like 21 years ago. I mean, that one, people should know. I mean, if you can't, just what's happened over the last few years. Like if you can't kind of pierce through that, like the real base level of the deception that's in the physical, then how the hell do you expect to kind of pierce the veil through the soul trap and explaining like the layers of like, the fact, like first, like being able to prove that reincarnation exists, that it's actually happening and it's prevalent. It's not just like a little baby thing. It's big, it's huge. It's been well known for thousands of years, right? So, and that's just what we have records for. Who knows all the records that were destroyed and the cultures and all the things that have occurred prior to all this. But, it's like, it's all about kind of easing someone in, like never pressure someone. You got to it's like a slow drip. You got to give them a little here, let them sit on it, little here, let them sit on it. And then towards the end, after you're kind of building up all these things and showing them all the different types of experiencer cases, not just NDEs, but across the board, then you factor into the big picture of what this reality is, a dog-eat-dog world where everyone is born, everyone dies, everyone has to eat and gain substances. I'm saying whatever. You get what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean, just look out for you. And if there are some people along the way that are receptive, go for it. But don't overwhelm them either. Because like the biggest lesson I learned with kind of sharing truths is that, you're only going to get through to those who are actually interested. And if you're spinning your wheels and wasting your time with those who are closed-minded or not even open to like the little baby basic truths, then you're sure as hell not going to get them to see the soul trap. That's just my opinion, but it's an opinion based on a lot of hurt, right? I used to always think like if you scream from the rafters enough about this and that change could occur. But when you're dealing with an entire society that is brainwashed and under mind control, you can't pierce through that unless they have that embedded within them and have broke through at least a portion of their programming. That's the sad truth of it. But don't let that get you down, because you deserve better. That's what you got to think about. You got to think about you. That's always number one. Your sovereignty and liberation is number one, and helping others is right below that. But also kind of realizing time management, right? Like, okay, like I'm going to try to talk to this person in the comment section. I'll share Wayne Bush's website at trickedbythelight.com. I'll share Dan's channel at Overwatch Project.com. I share FC's channel and this video or things like that. You just kind of drop a few hints here and there, and maybe someone will pick up on it, because you never know who's looking at comment sections, right? Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, on and on and on. Odyssey, Rumble, all these things. Like they're prime locations, like especially if you're already watching spiritually driven content. Like even just something about reincarnation. A lot of people look at reincarnation and they say, oh, just the thought of having to reincarnate here again is appalling. Many people think that. But if you can bridge the divide and say, whoa, look, something's wrong here. Why don't you go check out Wayne, go check out Dan, go check out FC, and say, like there's a lot more to it, then you may win someone over. And that's the best you can do, right? But, you got to, quote unquote, pick your battles and not waste time with people and bots, especially online, where you're just going to be totally distracted all the time and trying to defend your point of view or something like that. No, it's just like, let the information speak for itself, and those who are interested will find it at some point. And those who are closed-minded and not open to hearing alternative views, they're never going to look anyways. So it's like, again, it's like, why put yourself in a lose-lose situation where you're giving away your energy to someone who already doesn't care? So anyways, that's kind of my little mini rant.
Until you have those moments. And I always say, I'll discover more within me, discover what we're capable of, because we really don't think we're capable of much until you have those moments. And I always say we are each other's heroes. We are each other's healers. We are each other's teachers. You know, any experience, whether it's something small and simple or big or grand, is worth telling in sharing, because we all learn from each other this way.
Has the memory of your NDE faded over time?
No. I still remember it. Every time I share the story, I sometimes feel butterflies, the same butterflies I felt when I was going through the light. You know, that, like I said, I can't describe it, but I could feel it still. You know, that moment, it's mainly the moment when I went through that light is the most profound part that I remember the most.
There you go. There it is again. How many times do we hear it? The light was the most profound. It was the most memorable, this and that. And then when you start kind of dissecting it, remember what happened to her. She's going through the light, and then all of a sudden she ends up back here. She even admits that her memory's kind of scattered. She didn't use that word, but she used something like that to let us know that, you know, there were gaps in memory. Like all of a sudden, why do you think she just ended up here all of a sudden, right? She ended up here because she agreed to move forward and interact with that being, the Chief Jesus Matrix Enforcement Officer. And then boom, she's right back here. In her terms, you know, she said, she returns and says, boom, I was up in my bed. When I woke up, I remember thinking, what am I doing here? I don't want to come back here. That was her first thought upon return. Just like pre-birth memories. Pre-birth memories say constantly, I didn't want to come. I didn't want to come back here. NDEers say, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to leave. I felt like I was at home. Why are they all saying this? And I'm telling you, it's the high 90 percentile between both groups. Pre-birth memories, life between lives, past life regressions, and NDEs. Some of the biggest statements you'll see over and over and over again, that they did not want to come here, or they did not want to come back here. Why does everyone feel that way? Why is it such a high percentage? Because they know what a shit show this is. They might not be able to put their finger on exactly what it's all about, because of course you have the memory wipe involved. But you got to ask yourself, why do so many people say that? They're not saying that just to say it. It's just a huge clue right in our face. It's a massive data point. If they didn't want to come here, or they didn't want to come back, then why are they here? Why are they here? Because they've allowed themselves to move along too far down the road inside the matrix to stand up for themselves. And that's why not going down the tunnel, and certainly not going to the light, is in your best interest, in any of our best interests. It's all part of the scam.
That I hold dearly to my heart.
Was it a white light or a golden light?
For me, it was very white, like a very, like, beyond. I mean, we've been to doctor's offices, you know, like surgery tables where they have that bright white light. It was even whiter than that. I mean, it's like, it's just this light that is very powerful. And
there's a reason why children cry when they come here. What are they welcomed with? A big white light in the emergency room. Why are they crying all the time? Because they're back here. Why? What else could it be? They're like, oh, fuck, I'm back in this shit heap again. Get me out of here. That's what the child's crying is the translation for. They're like, oh, shit, I fell for it again. And here I am.
Bright white light. It was even whiter than that. I mean, it's like, it's just this light that is very powerful. And just being in that light you could feel the intensity of it. But to me, it was, I think the closest that I could describe it is as the lightning when it comes down, the way it just flashes. When you're going through it, you could see the flashing, but it's a wonderful feeling. There's no fear when you see that.
So you're saying that you're in a white light, but as you move through it, it flashes too.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say glitter like because it's beyond glitter. It's these flash, it's a light that's also like you just experience it. Every time it flashes, you experience this intensity of joy and happiness, and it's quadruple, it's like beyond happiness, and just, like I said, I just remember when I went through it, just thinking like, this is great. Like, I want to stay here. I just want to be here. I don't want to go in. I just want to be here. I remember thinking that. Just want to stay here.
All right. So this put you on your path to becoming a healer. And now you have an office, or you're referred to as the Duo Dragons?
Yes. So my husband came to me 3 years ago. Yeah, that's a great story. So I had just finished my advanced course in neuromuscular. Like I said, I never stopped learning because I'm just fascinated about the miracle of our body, the way he created us, whatever source this is, whoever this is, God, Jesus, a combination.
Okay, so, here, she is, Rebecca's saying, like, whatever it is, God, Jesus, whatever it is, the point is she doesn't know. She doesn't know. So if we don't know, although there are others that are absolutely convinced that the light is God, the light is source, the light is the creator, or the light is Jesus, or whatever, all right? The point is there are many that are convinced. But that's because you always hear them say that it's home. This place is so familiar to us and overpowering because, again, I've made this comparison before. The white light is like the drug dealer on the corner that gives away the free bags, right? Oh, here, try this. Meanwhile, it's laced with some BS, all right? And it gets the person hooked. And what happens? They're a customer for life. There's something about the light that is irresistible once you get there. There's something about the light that's appealing before you get there, or before we get there. And it can't be stated enough that, like, it's clearly like, it's like the neighborhood drug dealer, all right, who gives out the free samples and is trying to hook the kiddies, and have a customer for life. And then that's it. That's it. It's just another type of sensory experience, another type of drug experience that is hoping that you're just going to continue to fall into it. And then what happens? Okay, you go to it, you deal with it. It's amazing. Oh, God loves me. I'm home. And then what does God do? What does Jesus do? What does Allah do? Sends you right back here. You kidding me? Fuck that. Excuse my language. Sorry. Get a little worked up from time to time.
Jesus, a combination. The way they created us and how the capacity our bodies have to heal. So I'm always learning. So I had just finished this advanced course in neuromuscular therapy, and the liaison of the school kept my contact in case, if any student wanted tutoring, because they all knew at my school I was very gifted. The minute I walked in that school, they were like, whoa, it's like, this girl's really gifted. The teachers were blown away. Every time I would touch them, they were just like, oh, you are something special, aren't you? Because I would make them feel things. And so the liaison got a hold of me and said, hey, I know you're renting this room, precisely this room we're in. And would you be willing to rent it to a male? Because I was only doing it for females. I don't know about it. But I trusted, I meditated, I spoke with my guys, and they're like, yep, it's okay. I'm like, okay, send him over. Got to talk to him. I even kind of called classmates. But the funniest thing was talking to my guy. It's like, why are you guys sending me this chick? Well, he would not stop talking. He was like, I'm like, why are you guys sending me this guy? It's too much to handle. His energy, I can't handle it. And I would ask them, like, why did you guys let me do this? That was in April. In June, my sister gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer, stage 3. So then I'm like, oh.
Oh, Matrix coming and delivering the pain and suffering for everyone in the family. What a surprise. Sorry, gotta be a little sarcastic here.
Okay, let me consult with my guides again.
Consult with the guides. And, they did help her. Whatever they are.
Okay, guys, what's this about? What am I supposed to learn from this experience?
You're
How can
supposed
I
to
help
keep reaffirming the Matrix.
My sister had not experienced any major health problems until this moment of 2018. So she was scared. And she's still very scared. She's in the hospital right now. And I keep telling her, trust the process. Trust it. You're okay. Your guides are with you. This is happening for a reason. Just trust the process.
Just trust the process. See, again, this is where the disconnect comes with me. It's like, why am I supposed to trust? Why are any of us supposed to trust this system? Why are we supposed to put faith in this massive inversion and then think with any semblance of sanity that it's any different on the other side when it has proven itself over and over and over again to be part of the deception? This is the disconnect. That's why, if you're not looking at all experiencer cases, if you're not taking into account all of this realm and what it entails and how sick it truly is, and taking into account the pain and suffering of so many others out there who are not fortunate enough to have something like running water, electricity, food in their fridge. It's basic necessities, right? If you can't take into account the big picture and, of course, just the human body structure in general, think about how easy it is to break a bone. Think about how easy it is just to get injured, scrape your skin, and bleed. I mean, stupid things, stupid little dumb things. All right. When you look at it just from a small perspective, it's not much. But when you look at the big picture about what the human body entails and how fragile it is and how it's a dog-eat-dog world, not just with us, but within the entire animal kingdom, and we are animals too, then it really shows itself in a huge way. Why does everything eat itself, eat each other? Why does it have to feast off others? Because it's an energy consumption realm. It's a loose realm. And then it continues on in the astral realms. And they show it right in front of our face constantly that this is just some sort of processing plant. And all it cares about is convincing you in your moment when you're crossing over. And meanwhile, leading up to that moment, You're being indoctrinated with all sorts of bullshit, shoved with intergenerational trauma and indoctrination, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Where does it end? People think that, if they go to the Capitol or they go picket somewhere, that things are going to change. They're not going to change. They've got this place on lock and key, and they know exactly what they're doing. And trust me, they're not going to allow the cat to be let out of the bag. There's a few, the amount of us who can see through all of this BS are few and far between. But, just trust it. Everything's fine. Just trust it. Go with the guides. Go with your life script. Don't question anything. This is what we're being told. Don't question anything. No. Question everything and look at the big picture, the whole enchilada, and never turn back.
You're okay. Your guides are with you.
Ugh.
This is happening for a reason. Just trust the process.
Just trust.
Stay calm.
Just trust it.
And it was meant, the reason he moved in is because of my sister. So when she got diagnosed, I sat with my guides and they said, you can work on her, but you can't do it alone. And I'm like, well, who am I going to ask? And they're like, hello, who's in the room, 2 rooms down from you? And so I came up to him and I said, hey, I know you're finishing school and you were planning to move on, because he had told me once I finish school in August, I'm out of here. But I feel like we're meant to work on my sister. And so he was very excited. I remember you were very excited and then very intrigued and interested, like, wait, did your guides tell you this? Because I would tell him some things and he was so intrigued about me. And he goes, wait, did your guides tell you this? And I'm like, yeah, actually they did. And so then he has his gifts too. And he consulted his, and he heard that little whisper, yeah, you're meant to be here.
So look, we're talking about a sick family member, right? But we're also talking about trust and agreeing to go along because the guides are telling them to. It's just one example. Of course, if you have a family member or close friend or a pet, loved one in general, of course you're going to want to help them. And if these so-called guides can do that, that's great. Okay. In the moment, I get it. All right. But we're talking about one little thing in the big picture of everyone's life script. We each have them. We've each come here with them, and we can each disavow all of them. But the problem is until you realize that they even exist, you're shooting from the hip every time. And if you kind of fall into something like the New Age and various other indoctrination and belief systems, then the Matrix is just teeing itself up to take advantage of you. So the one good thing, or the few good things that you can apply to help others or yourself, may not necessarily be the case for everything. Well, not may, they're just not. Because all the Matrix wants you to do is stay on script and do what you're supposed to do and not ask too many questions.
And so we started working together. And what we did was we practiced on friends and family. And then friends and family, when I would work on them, they would feel, wow, like this biggest intensity of my healing. When we work together, they're just like, whoa, you just upgraded like 10 times with him. Like they were just blown away. So at that time, my sister, like I said, was diagnosed stage 3. She opted for aggressive chemo. They gave us a worst case scenario of almost a year of this intense chemo. She started it in September of 2018. By December, on Christmas Eve, she gets the phone call. your numbers are so low, it's almost considered cancer free. And she couldn't believe it. It's only 4 months. And I mean, she went through a lot during that time. And I remember the one.
Like a year later for her to.
Yeah, she was diagnosed cancer free exactly a year from June. The month of June she got diagnosed. That following year, June, she was diagnosed cancer free. But before that, we did a little interview with her, just like we're doing right now, for her to share her experience of how we helped her during that process. And she said, she goes, if it wasn't for you guys, every week I was ready to quit. Every week I was ready to throw in the towel and just say, just let me die, you know? And I looked at her like interesting, like, wow, you know. She goes, but I would feel so much better after you guys would work on me. And she goes, and I would say, you know what, I could do one more week. And that was every week. Every week she was ready to throw in the towel. We would work. She would get chemo in the middle of the week, every Sunday, like church. We were working on her. And she would feel better. And she would say, oh, okay, I could do one more week. I could do one more week. And that's what got her through. And she was in remission from 2019 to 2021. Just recently, they noticed a shift in her numbers. It's not really bad. It's not even considered stage 1. It's like borderline. She's just, anything above 35 is considered cancer. Anything below 35, that whatever, how they document that number through her blood, is cancer free. She went as high up as 100 and then started going down again. The last test that she had was 38. And even though her numbers are low, she's experiencing inflammation, and she did develop a few more tumors. She also has hernias. And the reason why she's in the hospital is not from the cancer, but the consequences. So the tumors and the hernias are compressing on the intestines and causing a blockage. So right now she's in the hospital for that.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions or chit chat with you. Are you open to that?
Yes, I'm very open, even with our new clients, future clients, previous clients. I always tell them I'm here of service. Whatever insight I can provide, I know that's my purpose. So I'm open to receive questions, anything that they need. I'm an open book, you know, and so any way I can help, I'm here of service.
What's the best way to contact you?
You can go to our website. It's called Dual Dragons. It's DUO Dragons with an S.com. You can get all our information there, a little bit more of what we do, what services we provide, pricing, you know, and you could also reach us via email, which is JB as in boy, R at dualdragons.com, or our business number that is 949-942-1428.
All right. Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
One last positive message.
Trust your
I
guides.
say this a lot to people when people are feeling down, or they think, what's my purpose? I don't feel like I have a purpose like you. Because I get that a lot. They look at me and they think I'm this grand person. I said, no, we are all part of this grand project. You know, I remind them that they're all part of this, you know, and I always tell them,
I'm not part of it anymore. I want nothing to do with it. Just being honest. You got to pick and choose your battles, right? You got to pick and choose who you're going to allow your energy to be released to. You really do. I mean, That's just the bottom line of how this place works. Conserve your energy, but don't disconnect completely from reality, right? Don't disconnect from meaningful relationships that can hold value to you. And of course, have compassion and empathy for those that are still lost, especially like if they're in your immediate circle. You've got to have compassion and empathy because remember, we all were asleep at some point. All right. And it just may not be their time to figure it out this lifetime. So always keep that in mind.
And project, I remind them that they're all part of this, and I always tell them, keep looking, pay attention in those quiet moments when you're asking, because you do get messages. Sometimes we just let busy life get in the way. We don't pay attention, and they show this in the movies a lot. I'm always amazed now when I watch movies, how much they kind of leak messages through movies too.
Absolutely. They leak plenty of message about how this place is a soul trap too. Tons of it. It's infested out there. But like there are layers of truth with everything. And I think this is something that cannot be stated enough. Like there is for every massive truth that's out there, I'm talking about the big daddy truths, right? Like even just about ops and all that stuff, right? Like for every massive truth that's out there, there are levels of deception contained within that truth, right? So if you have one big truth, I'm not going to name anything specifically, but if you have one big truth, chances are in order to get to that truth that you have to go through multiple layers just to get there. So you have to weed out, move on, weed out, move on. And then eventually kind of things come together to form a more real truth, a more believable explanation for something, right? And then kind of you're at that point, it's like, okay, this is likely what it is, and I'm comfortable with where I stand. But if you're not going back and also revisiting those things and refreshing your memory and saying, okay, and that was a big part of my journey. It's I'm talking about really, really just ABC type truth stuff. And then if you don't go back and kind of revisit what your belief systems were previously and put them to the test, then all you're kind of doing is lining yourself up to get the base truths that the system wants to give you, like option C. So instead of clearing option A, B, and C, you're only checking off one box instead of all three that kind of lead you and funnel you into the main truth, the real truth. Just saying, I mean, that's just been my experience with almost everything. The surface level truths are never the truth. It's just not how this place works. It's a world of inversion. And even when you get to that, it's all right. Even when you kind of get to the core of what you think is the truth, it's all right, well, now what? And you move on. And then you go to the next topic and you move on. Next topic, move on. And then put those beliefs that you had from those previous topics to the test and see if they hold water, or is there new information out there that can kind of dispute what you once thought. And I can almost guarantee that there are many topics that you can run across where you thought you knew the truth and then only realized that it was surface level, very, very basic parts of truth, with a lot of it kind of being veiled and hidden. That's just my experience kind of going through things. So never, ever, ever take your first assumption or thought about what a piece of truth may be, because most likely you're going to get bit in the ass at some point down the road. And this topic is a great example of it. Just the soul trap topic. Near-death experiences. I mean, Think about how near-death experiences are advertised. They're advertised, the light is God. All these NDE organizations, the authors, the big researchers, they all kind of are working in unison and saying the same things. But that's because that's where the data points them. It somehow doesn't connect that maybe all of it's one big mass deception. Like, that can't possibly be the case. See what I'm saying? So, like, if you go through just NDEs, just for one example, you can go through regressions and breakthrough trips and after-death community. On and on. All right? But you're only going to get surface level truths if that's all you're looking at is what kind of like the bigwigs are saying out there. Or if you're just taking each case as truth. Yes, is there truth in them? Absolutely. But the truth shows deception. Just like so many other truths here show deception that aren't even related to experience occasion, just basic stuff like political stuff or whatever. Really, really mundane BS truths. Anyways, I hope you get what I'm saying.
Movies a lot. I'm always amazed now when I watch movies how much they kind of leak messages through movies too, and it's just paying attention to those little messages or those moments. I always tell them it could be a moment that you read a passage through a book and it just made you feel good. Pay attention why it made you feel good. What was in that passage? Why did it affect you? Because another person can read it and they won't feel anything. So what was the purpose of that? Pay attention to those little details, the moments you feel chills, your gut instinct. We all have these beautiful senses besides tastes, sight, to be able to hear, touch, feel. There's more beyond that. Those moments, as mothers, I tell them, whenever I'm helping mothers with their babies, teaching them massages or ways to take care of their children. And they're like, but how do I know? I'm like, believe me, you'll know. You know when to wake up. Haven't you noticed that? Like when you wake up, that's time to go to your baby. And they're like, yeah, I always find that odd. We develop these senses that we're not aware of, that we don't pay attention to.
Now, I'll add on to that on why I think those senses exist. Because we've experienced them before and because it's ingrained into the human existence. Part of becoming human is that if you have a child, man or woman, you're going to be constantly looking out for that child. Hopefully, like if you're actually a caring parent, just saying, I'm not even gonna go there, but let's just say that, someone I care for deeply, and this is not uncommon, she went through absolute hell with her mother specifically, and did some things that I can never even imagine someone thinking of, let alone acting on. All right. And she's someone I care about deeply. And, that's just one small example. One small example. And, I don't even know where I was going with this, but, yeah.
When you wake up, that's time to go to.
Oh yeah, she's talking about motherly instincts or just instincts in general. So yeah, I think the feeling for it is ingrained, just like our flight or fight mechanism, right? Like that's ingrained in us. Now, the question you can throw out there is, how does that build up lifetime after lifetime? Like, why do you have certain fears or phobias over not having fears or phobias of other things that other people have? Well, that's because these are things that carry over from past lives. That's been proven beyond a doubt. That is a fact that, most phobias or deep-seated fears come from something from a past life. And of course, a current incarnation too, depending on if you went through something while you were here. But, like fear of heights, fear of water, swimming, and everything in between. All right. All this stuff. Like if you've had that since a young child and your parents could kind of like also tell you that that's what happened, that you were like that, then it roots back to a past life. And some regression therapists are good and can take those fears away or mute them, eliminate them, and kind of get to the root cause of why it existed. And most of the time, it's going to link to something in your childhood or in a past life.
With their babies, teaching them massages or ways to take care of their children. And they're like, but how do I know? I'm like, believe me, you'll know. You know when to wake up. Haven't you noticed that? Like when you wake up, that's time to go to your baby. And they're like, yeah, I always find that odd. We develop these senses that we're not aware of, that we don't pay attention to. So always pay attention, even when you're feeling down, embrace that. Because when you feel down, there's a reason for it. There's a reason to pay attention to it, hug it, embrace it. When you're feeling the best, when you're the happiest, hug it and embrace it. I always tell them that everything you experience through life, experience it, embrace it. You will learn so much about yourself and realize these bigger things about you. We are all unique. We are all special. We are all born from this light. So I always just remind yourself of that.
No, I'm not going to remind myself that I'm born from this light. No, I want nothing to do with the light. I'm done with it. The light has proven itself to be, garbage. It's proven itself that its creation is by design and parasitic. I did just drop the link in the chat here. We are going to be having a live stream tomorrow, Sunday, December 11th at 4 p.m. It'll be a co-commentary with me and with Dan and I from Overwatch channel, Overwatch Project, about Robert Monroe. And it's going to be a fun one. So feel free to set a reminder there. I'd also like to give Ken Albert a big thank you. That's very kind of you, my friend, for the super sticker or super chat there. Thanks so much, my friend. I appreciate you.
Can everybody contact their guides? And if so, how do we do it?
Yes, you can. Like I said, sometimes it's just a whisper. It's the thought in your head. Sometimes, a lot of people will say, had this when we're having just simple conversation with friends, and oh yeah, I was going through this, and I kept telling myself like, this is impossible. I'm doubting this and that, because they're getting messages. They're having this self-talk with themselves, and I always tell them like, you guys realize that's your guides, that's your higher self. I always explain to them, how on TV they show an angel and a devil? That's pretty precise, because we have our light and dark side of us. We were made this way to be able to experience life. I go, that's you. That's the good you and the little mischievous you. I never say that. I say the little mischievous you. I go, and then there's a higher you. And then there's all these people. So when you're having those moments when you're talking to yourself and you hear that little voice, we always think, oh, that's just me having my thoughts. But those thoughts, those are messages. And we don't realize that. Like I said, pay attention to that. How did you come up with that? There's moments, I'm sure a lot of us, and a lot of friends have confirmed this, that sometimes they get ideas or thoughts that they would have never thought of. That's not you, that's your guides. So when I explained to them that, they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, yeah, because I would have never thought of that. I would have never told myself that. And I go, yeah, because that's your guides. That little inner voice within you is your guide. They're with us all times. So yes, I'm a firm believer you can connect with your guides. They're always with you. Sometimes you doubt them. And I always tell them, when you doubt them, what happens? They keep bugging you. And things keep happening until you finally listen. That's your guides.
Rebecca, thank you again for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I would like to again just give a big thank you and shout out to Jeff, the Jeff Mara podcast, for providing this interview to us today. And I'd also like to thank Rebecca if any chance she happens to run across this. Rebecca, it's just my responses are no reflection on you or anyone else that I do a commentary on. It's just about the data points and showing the ongoing deception which occurs here. So I do have some comments set aside and questions, I believe. So I do need to take a quick break before I get to those, and then we'll kind of go through those. I got a bunch of different things that I saved along the way. And again, want to give a big thank you to Ken for your kind and generous support today. I appreciate you. So we'll be right back and we'll get into those questions. So hang in there for a few minutes, and yeah, thanks so much. Oh, and don't forget to, if you want during the break, to set a reminder for that co-commentary I'll be doing with Dan from Overwatch Project and Overwatch channel. And just to add, if you're new to the channel or new to the Soul Trap information, don't forget to also check out Wayne Bush at trickedbythelight.com. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks so much. Okay, so just as a reminder that this channel is for educational purposes only, and all social media and video sharing, video streaming, video sharing sites that the channel is on, such as Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, DLive, and feature website, and anywhere else you may find the channel. Everything is for educational purposes only. So, we did wrap up the NDE of Rebecca. Hope you enjoyed the 2 segments that we went over. And just before I kind of move along to the questions, and there's some chats that were popped up throughout the stream that I kind of threw aside, and Jimmy's been sending them in. I want to thank Jimmy for his help tonight, and T, and then I know Tommy's out there, and Ann, and anyone else who is helping out with the chat tonight. I appreciate that. Really quickly, I did just purchase a new desktop computer. I still haven't had a chance to use it much. I'm transferring things over, like settings, and trying to make sure that like what I have here now is just kind of streamlined into the new system, and it's just taking a lot of time to make sure that that's set up right. And if you're interested in helping kind of defray the cost towards the new computer, I greatly appreciate it. But of course, it's never expected. I know we live in rough times these days, and a lot of us, including myself, are living month to month. But if you're interested and able to support the channel, I have a Stripe account and also Stream Elements. Those 2 sites take the least. I think they take about 3%. And then Odyssey, I believe, takes 7%, which isn't that bad. YouTube takes 30%, and Twitch takes 50%, which in my opinion is criminal. But so yeah, if you're interested in joining memberships, there's also those. That's available here on YouTube and Odyssey. They aren't available on Rumble, and probably just going to stick with Odyssey and YouTube until I open my own website, and then kind of transfer everything over there. And just as a reminder to those members on Odyssey, I am still uploading content over there, all the members' content. It's going to take a little while. I hope to have it completely done by the 1st or 2nd week of January, so hang in there. But I think so far I've uploaded 8, and there's a lot of the long ones out there. So if you check on the homepage in the playlist tab on Odyssey, you'll find links to all of those. And Odyssey also supports anonymous donations as well, so there's kind of that positive thing for those that would prefer to stay anonymous. Okay, so one more thing. Over on Twitch, I do Truth in Gaming, and right now I'm going through a game. I'm not gonna drone on too long about this, but there's a game that I ran across that basically, like, you go on a spiritual retreat because a friend invited you and told you, oh, it'd be good for you, and blah blah blah. You go there, and come to find out, like, negative entities are it's a cult, and these entities are all about taking your energy away. Surprise, surprise. So it's a loosh-based game. So feel free to check that out. I did have some technical difficulties in the first episode over on Twitch, but once I get to that new computer, it shouldn't be an issue at all. And I will continue that game sometime next week if you're interested. But even with the technical issues, it wasn't all that bad. You're just going to want to skip. If you are interested in watching, you might want to skip through till you see me actually playing the game. and then there were a few crashes, but overall it went smoother than it than it could have gone. So, and moving forward, it should be better. Okay, so now I'm going to head on over to the chat that we have saved. Let's see. Anne says, I met a Jesus-like figure that appeared in my room when I was young. Wow. I think I heard you mention that before, actually, Anne, but I've heard other people mention it too, so I'm not sure if I'm mixing them up, but yeah, the whole Jesus thing. Ugh. Yeah, it's all about kind of sucking us in, right? Getting us into the belief systems, reaffirming the belief systems that we learned here so that we don't think outside the box. So Misty Hamilton says, I done a QHHT session once. I seen the same patterns in past lives. Whether it's true or not, I see what I need to change in myself. There's that. That's what it's all about, right? It's all about taking control of ourselves yet again, and reclaiming our essence and not, faltering in any way, shape, or form. I think the key takeaway with everything related to the soul trap is that, we got lost along the way. That's all. We got lost. And if you look at the system and how it's so well thought out, it's easy to get lost in. There's no one to blame. It's just, it's a very, very manipulative, deceptive, and overwhelming sensory experience that we involve ourselves with. So, don't ever get down on yourself. Just know that moving forward, you have the control. And are you going to utilize that control and take advantage of it to liberate yourself? Or are you going to think that you can fight it and take it on and whatever, anything other that, the light is what it claims to be. And, I'm really seeing my deceased loved ones and all that. I mean, the question really comes down to how deep within are you content with your own power? Or do you feel that something outside of yourself actually has a right to rule over you and judge you on top of it? See, the systems are easy to fall into because there are so many different layers to kind of get us caught into the BS. Chain Minds Asylum also said she saw her grandmother who died when she was 5. Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I set that aside just to make sure that was clarified. Oh yeah, Joshua Carpenter earlier said Buddhists say to go towards the clear golden light. And then Payne says, what about the clear light of the void? And Joshua asks, what if that's the right exit though, referring to the golden light? Okay, here's my thought on all these lights, okay? That's why I'm not a fan of someone who claims the false white light, the false golden light, or the false light or whatever, because I think my research has proven that you can run into the white light, you can run into the golden light, you can run into the blue light, you can run into purple. I mean, there's 5 or 6 different colors, and that's not even taking into account, experiences that are completely not related to something like NDEs, like past life regressions, life between lives. There's a color coding associated sometimes with, experience or evolution as a quote unquote soul. All right. The way I see it is if it's visual, if it's telepathic, auditory, whatever the case may be, if it's presenting itself, it's a possible risk. Now, could I be wrong? Sure. I mean, maybe one of these lights is what it's all cracked up to be, but deep like in my gut, I don't think so. And the only thing I'll just pass along is like, why risk it? Kind of like with everything else that we talked about tonight and in many other videos. It's like, why would you risk interacting or messing with any of these lights, regardless of what they are or what they claim to be, when they could all be part of the same system? I mean, if there's anything this realm has proved, and the astral realms linked to it within the overall matrix system, is that it's very clever. It can deceive us in all sorts of ways. So not interacting, shielding yourself is the best kind of plan out there. And that's why I stick to my guns with that, because why risk it? Like, if we're wrong or something's off and maybe one of these lights is what it claims to be, okay, well, it can wait. I don't need to be hanging around and hoping that one of these lights is what they claim to be, because I don't know. And I'm not going to take a chance either. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with all that stuff. The clear light of the void is a big one through, I know William Buhlman talks about that a lot. But even just the void in general, there is no doubt a matrix void. Okay. And I think, again, this is like just something deep within me. I can't prove it, but it's just something that like I'm going with my gut on, that I feel like when you strip us away to our bare core, that we are just pure existence in something like a void-like state. That's kind of what my gut is telling me. Now, could that be wrong? Sure. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but at the same time, it's like I feel like the less sensory distractions or any sort of distractions, the better, which would imply that, like, if you're in your own void, remember, it's your own created void, not the matrix void or matrix lights or whatever the case may be. It's your own realm, your own creation that's incapable of being infiltrated. Then you can't go wrong, right? I mean, you're protecting yourself. It's all about self-preservation. So that's kind of my thoughts on all that. The question you should always ask yourself is, am I willing to take a risk? Like, in hopes that something I learned here is accurate. I mean, again, like kind of like this realm proves itself over and over to be nothing but one big fat deception. And it's also proven itself to be a big fat deception in the astral. So why take a chance at getting distracted by its BS? I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's all about you taking care of you and making sure that there is as few things in your way to liberation as possible. That's all. Let's see. Yeah, I liked what D said here. Utopia, I think that is quite reasonable. We have no idea how many layers of realities these things control. Yep. And that's exactly kind of what I was pointing at too, D, because we just don't know. And just on a surface level, the amount of realms that are out there linked to the system is insane. I mean, and that's just in a very, very stripped down perception coming from like the human experience and some astral projection and experiences like that and breakthrough trips. But, and of course, you got all the other things. But the point is we just don't know. It seems like this system is massive, absolutely massive. And why risk anything? Why risk anything? I mean, I don't even want to fart in the matrix. I don't. Like, I just, like, get me out of here. When my time comes, get me out of here. and I don't want to see anything, deal with anything, and just leave me alone. Like I'm going to protect myself and make sure that nothing is going to interact with me, period. And then just going to give myself some time. You should give yourself some time, even though time supposedly doesn't exist, or at least is different. But, when you take into all that, when you take everything like that into account, then you can kind of see how it's the safest route, right? You're in your own realm. It's your own creation. Don't you want your memories back? Don't you want to know what you did before you even came to this system? Maybe there was also, not maybe, there must be all sorts of things we've experienced before we even came here for the first time. What about all those memories? What about all the other realms, all the other things, all the other beings that we associated with? What if there are all sorts of beings that we care for in other realms that we hung out with, that we did things with? What about all that? But instead, we're kind of limiting ourselves to this experience. And of course, what the astral realm does is it makes everything look familiar to us. And there's a reason for that. It's the continuity of familiarity, because these two worlds cross over with one another. And unless you're kind of able to see through the BS and that they are linked, then it doesn't matter, because the Matrix got you. So, Ken Albert just sent us another super chat. Thanks so much, man. That's so kind of you. Ken says, our elders teach us to never go to the light. They say, keep it to the left. Ignore everyone you meet. Nice. Nice. Exactly. Ignore everything. Everything. Any sort of anything. Like it seems like all they have to really do is just kind of dangle the carrot. And it's like, if you bite and go for the carrot, then everything goes haywire. I mean, that's what we see. We see prime examples. Like in this case, I mean, I think we saw a clear example of someone who, like, look, you had the chief Jesus entity, and it was just kind of staring there. It was giving her nasty looks. The eyes, she remembers the eyes clearly. And then once she said, what was her word? I'll give you the exact phrase, but she said something like, here it is. She just goes, I feel I need to trust you. I feel I need to trust you. And once that started happening, what she did is she relinquished herself to this being. And then remember earlier on, before that, she says, why am I trusting these people? I don't even know who they are. So she had discernment going in, but the problem is she didn't understand why she was connecting with it so well. But that's because it's a false home. It's not legitimate. It's all part of the Matrix. So, it's to make sure that we bypass everything. And thanks again, Ken. I appreciate you, my friend. Okay. So, oh yeah, by the way, Ken, I wanted to ask you, I'm curious, what elders you may be referring to. Is there a certain thing you kind of elaborate with that, Ken? Because that's cool to hear. I like hearing that. It's good to know there's others out there. I know Buddhism, Hinduism kind of can beat around the bush with that. And different sects too. Depends what you're involved with. Okay, so anyways, Utopia said to D, who can say what is out there? Exactly. That's really kind of goes to the crux of everything, right? It's like, we don't even know. We've been lost for who knows how many lifetimes, or whatever we've been involved with in this Matrix for who knows how long. So what about what happened before all that? I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but don't we deserve to think bigger? Don't we deserve to think beyond something that we recognize? I mean, why are a lot of these astral realms looking similar to what we are familiar with down here? Because it's all part of that indoctrination. It's to make us feel comfortable, to make us give that false perception of home within. That's the problem. And so we've got to think bigger. We all deserve to think bigger. Think beyond this. Think big, big picture. And what is that big picture? We don't know, but it's got to be bigger than what the hell's going on here and in the astral realm. That's for damn sure. Obera, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I appreciate you. Says, greetings from Ireland. Thanks for the work you do. Thank you. You're very welcome. Glad you're finding value in the content. And thank you for your kind super chat. Okay, so where were we? Okay, Voidwalker asked the pain. Let me ask this question. Is love a deception or is it used for deception? I thought that was a great question, Voidwalker. Because it's a tool of deception, right? And, I just want to make sure that it's known. Hello, Jesus. I just want to make sure that it's known that, you got to still enjoy yourself while you're here, right? There's nothing wrong with enjoying love and happiness and joy while you're here. You can't go to the other end of the spectrum either, where everything is miserable and horrible either. Look, it's a clown show, it's a shit show, but at the same time, there's still good here, right? And love, let's be honest, is one of the best things this place has going for it. And really, like, the next step is to make sure that, when you're on your way out, like you've got to be content within you that that you can drop all of it. For me, I've told my girlfriend before, I said, and we're both in agreement with this, by the way, it's otherwise I wouldn't be with her. But I told her, I was like, if I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to see you. I don't want anything to do with you. I just let me be in peace. And we both agreed to that because we both know that, when that time comes, that's when it really matters. And the last thing you want are attachments lingering around you who can distract you. You're not going to have a major distraction with the nurse or a doctor or something like that. But you can hold one with a loved one. But does that mean you deprive yourself of enjoying their company until then? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, yeah, you just, but yeah, I mean, love is used as a deception tool. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't mean you still can't value it, right? Let's see. KSP Crafter says, question, do you think there is a way to test the truthfulness of spirits in the afterlife, dead relatives, for example, or to expose demons masqueraded as beings of light? We touched on this earlier in the stream. There's someone who left a comment. I think it was actually Hazel. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe, look, I think, we are much more in tune with ourselves and some of our surroundings, and may be able to kind of sniff out BS easier. But the problem is when we're kind of talking about this topic, at least in the short term, is we're kind of looking at the whole picture as within the matrix, right? Like, the last thing you want to do is apply or believe those types of assertions or judgments on another being when you're still within the matrix, right? I mean, I think only time will tell once we fully liberate ourselves that, you know, how all of this works. I think it'll all come flying back to us and it'll be easy peasy, right? But if you're still within like the matrix realms, remember, like for instance, here we're in their world, we're in their meat suit, we're in their enclosure, and then if you go to the astral realms and the light at the end of the tunnel and all this other stuff, we're in their world too, in those places. So we're at an inherent disadvantage, and there is no doubt in my mind that other entities is no doubt in my mind that other entities can deceive us, regardless of what we assert. It doesn't mean that they have to tell the truth or reveal themselves. Although on the other hand, there are things where we can use our intention to get out of a situation. So if you have some sort of type of demonic entity, let's say something that's really nasty and appears to you like in an astral projection or something, you can get yourself out of that situation instantaneously with intention. But if you're not lucidly aware enough, like kind of, again, like levels of lucidity matter too, especially with something like astral projection, lucid dreaming, etc. So but that doesn't mean they can't lie to you, right? And the way I see it is, it's like, why even bother, right? Why get involved? Unless you're doing astral projection, lucid dreaming practice, then, you know, that's a whole nother thing. And I highly recommend anyone out there who's kind of needs to prove their powers to themselves, look into that, because that is the key. Once you go outside your body and realize that you can alter and change a situation at the snap of a finger, you realize your true power. You realize that this whole place is smoke and mirrors. But the last thing you want to do is be testing that, you know, when you're leaving here at the time of natural death. So, but you can prove it to yourself that you can, you know, vanish all these beings that may come in your path just through astral projection, lucid dreaming practice. And as far as the afterlife and dead relatives, for example, I'm of the opinion that none of these beings, well, I can't say none, but I would say a very, very high percentage of these beings are not what they claim. I think they are something along the lines of holograms, AI constructs, whatever you want to classify them as. I mean, what this matrix does is it takes our life script. It takes everything that we've experienced there. Remember, they are essentially recording every single second of every single minute of every single hour of every single day from cradle to grave. They have access to that information. What they do is they take that information in the afterlife and process it and plop it into a life review if you're buying into the BS, and then you kind of go through it. So, and to me, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around that all of these deceased relatives and pets and Jesus and God itself and the source is just hanging around, waiting for us. Like on the scale that we see. Now, could there be some real ones? Sure. But as far as I'm concerned, it's like, it kind of goes back to everything else we've been talking about. Why risk it, right? If it's them, it's them. But the other thing is, like, if it is them, they're still stuck in the matrix, right? So how does that benefit you as a sovereign being? It can only hurt you. Now, I know it's like tough love. It really is. It's like you sit here and you say, look, I want to help those that I care about. But at the same time, like, if they're already dead and moved on, and they're still showing themselves to you, then there's a very high likely chance that they're not legit and that they're still stuck in the matrix anyways, even if they are legit. So it's a lose-lose situation, right? The last thing you want to do is get advice from someone who's still stuck in the illusion, even if they are real. So that's kind of how I look at it, both ends of that. KSP. E.T. Vala says, what do you make of people seeing entities during sleep paralysis? Well, it's a common thing. I think entities are there as a deterrent. I think they're there to prevent you from exploring outside your body. I think the body vibrates and sees these things as a deterrent to make sure that you're not going to go and connect in a different way that isn't here on Earth and in the physical body, physical meat suit. So I think all those things, I mean, I've seen them more times than I can count. And I'm convinced that basically they're just like a scare tactic. They're pathetic, but they're there and they're effective. And if you can kind of have safeguards in place, you remember, you always got to think about as if you were controlling this place, like these parasitic SOBs, right? You got to always put yourself in their shoes. Like, I mean, I know it's hard to imagine, but I mean, really, like if you could think of a more perfect system of deception than this, then, you know, I tip my hat. But I mean, they have thought of almost everything. And that goes with astral projection, sleep paralysis, lucid dreaming, all these things. They're there. And if you can kind of bypass and get around all that and not get shaken and thrown back in your body, then that's a good thing. But then they also kind of, sleep paralysis, I think it's like also an amazing example of loosh, right? A lot of children experience it, young adults, and it freezes someone. They aren't able to necessarily assert their power, and they're like kind of like in this in-between state, and it's the perfect loosh mechanism. And I think it kind of also ties into things like bad dreams and on and on and on. So yeah, I think it's all part of it. There's a reason why they don't want us going out of our body. I'm thoroughly convinced of that at this point, because they don't want you to find yourself. They know that if they allow you to kind of peek behind the curtain and maybe analyze these things and be able to come back and analyze them further and see inconsistencies, they don't want that. That's the last thing they want. So that's just my opinion on it. Okay, so I think that wraps things up. Thank you again, Ken and Obera. And is there anyone else I missed? No, I think that's it. Thank you, Joey, Vegan Skeptic. Good to see you, brother. Payne, KSP, Leonard, MZFR. Good to see you, my friend. Tommy, Conscious Soul. All right, my friends, it's been fun. And just as a reminder, there is a link in the description tab before we close things out for tomorrow's stream, which will be Sunday, December 11th at 4 p.m. Dan from Overwatch Project and Overwatch Channel will be stopping by, and we're going to do a co-commentary on a Robert Monroe interview. And I'm really looking forward to that. Hope to maybe see some of you there. And, oh yeah, there's 2 YouTube backup channels, just in case something should ever happen here. They're kind of parked there. And just as a reminder too, Odyssey and Rumble, I'll be doing exclusive streams on those platforms starting next week. And those will happen at least once a month going forward, permanently. And those videos will not be available on YouTube. So if you're interested in joining over on Odyssey and Rumble, you can find those links in the description tab and sign up for an account. They're both completely free services, unless, of course, you want to join memberships on Odyssey as an option to get extra content each month. And there's a backlog of over a year's worth of videos there. There's also early access videos that I put out, and put out maybe one or every other week, something like that, or 3 a month, something along those lines. And then, of course, it also includes an invitation to the private Discord server for research and chat. So I already talked about the Twitch, where I do Truth in Gaming, and that will continue next week sometime, probably Monday night or Tuesday, somewhere around there. And I have a D Live if you're over there, and Instagram and a Twitter. The other thing is, I know a lot of you, well, not a lot of you, but there's a number of you out there who don't get notifications here on YouTube. If you are on Odyssey or, if you're on Twitter or Instagram, I do usually put out a notification about an hour before each stream. And then I also have the email list, and that's one of the only things that I can control. And if you're interested in joining that, feel free. And it's a good way to stay in touch. And it will also include updates about the future website, which is going to come out next year, come hell or high water. I'm hoping to get it done within the first few months of the new year, but I said that last year. I said that towards the end of last year, but it is looking promising, and it's going to happen. And we're going to resume the astral projection and lucid dreaming group meeting group. And so, yeah. All right. I'm kind of tripping over my words. It's getting late here, and I look forward to seeing some of you Sunday. So feel free to, again, set a reminder in with that link. It's in the description tab, and I will see you all again soon. Stay safe, don't work too hard, and sovereignty and liberation all the way. Last time.